till I become it all.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Einstein Mother's Audacious Challenge. And happy summer solstice. This is June 21st, and not exactly 10:35, but 10:37, and I'm happy to be here now. This is the state of our planet. And this is a binary choice. We are either making decisions that is anti-biological or we're making decisions that is pro-biological. And so this is where we'll start the journey. We'll start the journey with the sense of where we are in space and time. And now I just want to set the stage here. This is brand new. I've spent up into the very last minute figuring out my lighting, figuring out how to switch between the cameras, and figuring out my green screen. It's been a crazy, crazy journey. I don't recommend being the camera guy, the light guy, the audio guy, and the talent at the same time. It's a little overwhelming, but look, this is day one. This is day one of the Audacious Challenge. This day has been as audacious as everything I've ever done in my life. But I could not be here without the amazing talent of the Geek Academy and the geeks, the Geek Agency, Andrea, Susan, Nicole, and Dan. Without their help, again, this team is a team that makes online dreams come true. If you ever thought about going online, you have to join the Geek Out Academy. Step one. So this is kind of like the reverse. Typically, these are the credits that roll at the end of an event. I want to start off by saying I couldn't be here without the amazing people that have encouraged me. I mean, look, Brene Brown. I've in my other previous sort of episodes, without her help, without her saying, you know, Arnie, you got this. You have to summon the courage to overcome your fear and shame and deliver what you were born to deliver. And this is why I have been put on the planet. I've had lots of ups and downs along the way, but the last 11 years, I've invested 70,000 hours, and let's put that into context. 70,000 hours divided by 40-hour work weeks, it's roughly a 40-year career shoved into an 11-year box. So that's kind of what this project represents. And today I don't have a script. I didn't have time to prepare a script. So this is just me talking to you. So I want to set the stage as well by saying, like, this is not some slick presentation. This is my minimal viable production. I'm going live. I'm going to share what I know, and hopefully it sparks curiosity to go like, wow, that sounds interesting. I want to know more. And so I hope I begin to establish a relationship, a conversation with you. This is not me talking to you. This is a two-way conversation. So you gotta DM me. You have to put your questions in the chat. And again, this is going to be recorded. And so, you know, you'll be able to have an opportunity to review this, but don't just be a spectator. Jump in and do this for yourself, for your family. Okay, so we covered Brene Brown. We've covered the Geek Out Academy. Seth Godin, all-time favorite hero. Without him, it wouldn't be here as well. And then the last person I want to sort of acknowledge. Again, I love Elizabeth Gilbert. Who loves Elizabeth Gilbert? And I'm a big fan of Eat, Pray, Love, but this is one of her earlier works that really, again, if Tim Ferriss was interviewing me and what's one of the books that I recommend the most, this is one of them, The Last American Man. This is a story of Eustace Conway. And here's a guy who was doing the unthinkable, the unimaginable. And so I oftentimes think back on Eustace's life and the things he's accomplished, and it's inspiration that has helped me along the way to continue this journey. Okay, so like I said, this is going to be a little bit clunky. This is not going to be perfect, but it's going to be good enough. And I prepared some slides, and I'm now going to attempt to switch back and forth between the slides and me. Let's see if I can make that happen. So the first thing I've got to do is I have to go over to camera 6, and then I have to pull up my slide deck. Thank you very much, Andrea, for helping me this morning, early morning. Let me see if I can pull this off, kids. Slide deck, there it is, very exciting. And so now I'm going to X you out. And now let's see if I can switch back and forth between these two elements. I'm not sure that I can, but let's see if I can do that. Give me one more moment here. Let me see how to make this transition. Again, this is clunky. This is in real time. And I don't really know exactly how this is all going to work out yet, but thank you for being patient with me. Okay, that's not what I'm going for. And if I can't pull this off, then we're just going to wing it. One more chance here. I think I'm going to be close. And again, it may be ugly while I do this, but I spent so much time Nicole Kuntz from South Africa. She worked hard to prepare this, so I really want to make sure that her brilliance shines. So what I've got to do here is I have to, let's see here. I'm going to go to my ATEM switcher, and now I'm going to switch back and forth between that and this. So there's my switcher. A little bit clunky, like I said. This is ugly. This is real time. There's no, I am the man behind the curtain. So thank you for being patient. This is exciting and frickin' scary at the same time. Okay, here we go. Ready? Look at that. So this is the amazing slide deck that Nicole made for me to be able to hopefully share this conversation. Clearly the switching is going to be clunky. I've got the technology to be able to do this in the future. It's going to be easier, but I just, these are tech hurdles. You just can imagine being frozen in time for 40 years. You come back to the 21st century, and there's a whole new world of technology. So that's kind of how I feel. So the Audacious Challenge. And so what are we covering today? This is the overview of the challenge that we're going to be covering. Day one today, we're going to be covering, again, the Audacious Challenge, what the $50 trillion riddle. We're going to talk about the great villain. The villain that has been wreaking havoc on not only America, but all of humanity. And then we're going to talk about really the poison spewing dragon. I mean, this is really at the heart of the challenge that we're facing. Day two, it's kind of more external challenges. I'll share the secret, the first secret to today's challenges. And then we'll talk about the fire-breathing dragon. And this is a whole nother level of complexities and challenges that we have to face if we want to defeat the great villain. And then lastly, foxes in the henhouse. We'll talk about that. Day three, the internal challenges. First of all, on day three, we'll give you the secret to day two. On day three, we'll give you the secret to day two. We'll talk about understanding kind of the missing keys, stream. Again, this is the key. The problems that we're looking at solving is not simply diet and exercise. This is not, you got to eat better, you've got to diet better, exercise more. And look, that's important, but that's only a small piece of the puzzle. It's a technological issue that we have to look at. It's an engineering solution that we have to look at. It's an infrastructure issue to solve the problem to scale. Because again, what are we solving for? The Audacious Challenge to end childhood chronic disease in America by 2035. And again, if your mind is going like, what did he just say? Then you're probably not paying attention. So turn off your computers, your cell phones, stop talking to other people, and thank you for giving me your full undivided attention. This is a huge, huge deal. It's bigger than anybody could imagine. I've only met 3 people in the last 11 years who when I referred to the size and the scope of the problem, that they have they stopped and took a double take because they heard trillion, not billion, but they heard trillion. And back then when I first was talking about it, it was about $30 trillion. Since that early conversation, it has grown to be $50 trillion solution. What does that mean? It means that when we get to the end of this rainbow in 12 years and 6 months from today, December 21st, the winter solstice of 2035, the pot of gold that is there is a $50 trillion pot of gold. but we're going to be, cashing in on that pot of gold between now and then. It's not like you do all the work and then you get the reward. We're getting rewards as we go. Okay, and I will be making many tangents since I don't have a script to follow. So I will hopefully remember where I left off, and I'll continue. So STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, most important part of the STEM equation that's been left out, and then of course math. This is the only way that we're going to get to where we want to go. So these are STEM powered solutions. Einstein mother steam powered solutions. What are we doing on day 4? This is a philosophical challenge. I mean, this is a part of the secret solution in real time. And I don't have excuse me, because I'm looking over at my monitor to read this off. So it'd be great if I had it on my teleprompter, but not today. So secret solution in real time. And again, here's one of the things that I realized, that the solution had to be comprehensive, not just one piece, one part, had to be comprehensive, and it had to be scalable. And that means that, the solution, you have a model, you prove the model, and then you replicate the model. So what we'll be talking about over the next 5 days, and really over the next 10 days for my VIP people and Backstage Pass people, we'll be jumping in and talking about how do we scale this. And we're looking at, what I'll be sharing with you all is a regional model. In fact, it's going to be the Greater Houston model. This model, it can be laid over any major metropolitan city. But my feeling is, we can tip the Woodlands, Texas. We can tip Houston. We can tip Texas. We tip Texas. We can tip North America. Not just America, but North America, Canada, the United States of America, and Mexico. Thinking in bigger terms, bigger solutions. This is an audacious challenge, not a baby, teeny, tiny challenge. This is not like another widget. This is not another, another distraction from solving the problems that we have to solve. Okay, so it's got to be socially equitable. Right now, every time over the last 40 years that I've shoved in 11, here's what I came up with. I came up with solutions that if you were well educated, if you could understand the conversation we're having, if you were well informed, you would be able to find me and we can have a conversation. And if you were wealthy, you could afford the solutions that I'll be talking about. So I realized, it's not enough to create a solution for those that have money. And look, by the way, those that have money don't always necessarily have the intelligence. They may not know, especially depending on how they acquired the wealth that they've acquired, right? So again, I can't tell you the number of people I've had conversation with who could write a check for everybody in the entire, Houston area for the solution, but because they didn't understand the science, the technology, they didn't understand what they needed to know to justify the cost of the solution, they passed on it. So I realized, it's not enough to have enough knowledge. We have to have knowledge plus understanding is what I believe leads people to wise actions. And again, this is early on, but this is one of Einstein mother's trademarked formulas. Knowledge plus understanding equals wisdom, or we're referring to as wise actions, TM, ding. Okay, so let's continue, get back to the challenge overview. So it had to be socially equitable. It's not just solving a problem for the wealthy. It had to be for everyone, for the poor and the wealthy. So from River Oaks to the Fifth Ward, right? From Channelview to Katy. So literally, from Lake Jackson to Freeport. I mean, so thinking about the 9 counties in the greater Houston area is the solution for everyone. And I think when we get to having the conversation, especially for my Backstage Pass people and VIP people, we'll go into deeper, explaining exactly how that works, looking at pro formas, looking at philosophies, looking at ESG, the environmental factors, the social element, and of course the governance. I mean, how does this all work? And so one of the things that we'll be discussing on day 4 is the importance of peer-to-peer education, training, coaching, and ultimately certification. So So it's not enough to have one person, spewing information. This is literally working in your local community, within your school district, within your elementary school. We're literally mothers coming together, working together to implement the solutions, hold each other accountable, and support one another to implement the solution. So that, look, and as far as I'm concerned, one of the biggest keys to the solution we'll talk about in day 4, and that's the sort of peer-to-peer education, training, coaching, and then later we'll discuss, what does it look like to get certified and then help other people as well. Okay, on day 5, kind of the moonshot moment. Look, we're here, guys. We're here. We have a choice. Here we are. This is it. This is where we are in humanity. We are at the crossroads of crossroads of crossroads. If we do not make decisions and changes right here, right now, we'll never get to this. And it's a binary decision. And again, just so we know, this is from one of my all-time favorite artists. This is Gaia from Alex Gray. And again, I think it best represents where we are in humanity right here, right now. And it's binary, kids. We have to make a decision. This title could just as well been, instead of, or in addition to, Einstein Mother's The Audacious Challenge to End Childhood Chronic Disease in America. And, oh, by the way, the 6th mass extinction by December 31st, 2035. But, all my sort of marketing bones says you can only talk about one thing at a time. So we're talking about one thing. Because here's what I know about this sort of 6th mass extinction. We're confused. We've got muddled brains about what that even looks like, what that even means. And so when we think about the 6th mass extinction, we're hearing things like, oh, climate warming and global change. And I'm like, no. It's the end of humanity as we know it. It's the end. Species are leaving the planet at a rate and a speed that have never been seen before, except for the previous 5th extinctions, mass extinctions. But this one's caused by the efforts or by the impact of mankind, for the last, at least 300 or so, 250 years, maybe Industrial Revolution. We could talk about that, argue about that. But, so this has been going on for a while, but we are running off the cliff. In fact, my good friend Butch, he would say, Arnie, the train has left the track. And what we're feeling is that we're in free fall. We just haven't hit the bottom yet. But make no mistake, the train has left the track. And it's going to require the smartest, brightest, most happening people that can even understand this conversation and then have a will to do something about it. And I just changed my slide. And I realized, okay, real time, here we go. I want to go back because I want to make sure I finish everything in that other slide. Valley of decision. So we're really coming to the point where this is a call to action, moving everybody forward. Now, if I can, let me see if I can switch to the next, back to me. And maybe I can, maybe I can't. Let's say, before I even come back to me, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. It's funny because I've been up here kind of doing all this dynamic dancing in front of my screen, and I realized, like, oh, you guys can't see my dancing, my animation here. So today, welcome to day number 1, the Audacious Challenge. And what we'll be talking about today is, again, the origin of the Audacious Challenge. And one of the things I discovered early on in this conversation was the United Nations Emergency Summit, September 2011. September 2011. Whenever I learned about the Audacious Challenge, I went and discovered this summit, and then subsequent to Harvard a paper on chronic disease, and that was the beginning of my education into this world. We're also going to be talking about the scope and the magnitude of the challenge, the villain in the room, really the great villain in the room, and of course the root causes of chronic disease. Okay. Let's see. Now, in the future, I'll be able to figure out how to be somewhere on the screen while I'm actually having this conversation with you. So let me switch back to me. Here we go. Okay, we're back. And what again? Just so we're clear, I don't exactly, since I don't have my. Oh, maybe I can do this. I'm sorry. Again, thank you for being with me today and for recognizing that this is a huge technical challenge. Okay, so now I can see my notes, and you can see me. So here we go. Let me start. Some of you kind of know a little bit about the background of Einstein mothers, but I want to step back and take you back in time to February 11th, 2012. I had, and you may have seen the other episode. In the early episodes, I shared the story, but I think it's important to really anchor this in place, and so that we know what's the starting off point. Why would anybody come up with just an insane idea that they could even try to end childhood chronic disease or chronic disease in general, right? That was the initial plan. So here I am. I just taught, a butt-kicking, ass-kicking express hot yoga class. I mean, it was, my brain was on fire. I was highly focused, and I, 50-minute class. It was 9 a.m. class. Of course, all of my classes were 50 minutes long. Not right. They're probably always at least 55 minutes, if not an hour, for all of my Bikram yoga, express hot yoga fans up in the Woodlands. So, I came out of class, I toweled up, I went to the reception area, got on the couch, and where I'm greeting new students coming in and telling other students, goodbye. First person to join me on the couch was C.J. Haynes. At the time, she was a president of the Montgomery County School Board. So, as far as I'm concerned, C.J. Haynes, most happening human being on the planet, and she was a big fish in the small pond of the Woodlands ecosystem. And so she sat down in front of me, and she said, hey, have you heard that Anadarko Petroleum contributed $1 million to the local United Way there in the Woodlands to solve a riddle? She didn't refer to it as a riddle, but it was a riddle. And I said, no, I haven't heard about that. And she said, well, they'd given them $1 million to come up with a program to solve this question. And here it is. Why are children getting sicker and sicker and sicker at younger and younger ages with the chronic diseases that were once reserved for the elderly? And my brain, it was an instant pole bridge, both sides of my hemispheres, connected, right, left hemisphere. And I had this calculation in my brain about Anadarko Petroleum and 1,000 employees, and half their employees have kids, 2.5 kids. And I figured, okay, 50% chronic disease, it's a big number. If we're thinking about, why would Anadarko Petroleum, the largest oil and gas, privately held oil and gas company in America at the time, why would they be asking that question? Answer, came in. Financial, obviously. It was healthcare costs, and not only the healthcare costs of their employees, but the healthcare costs of their employees' children for the entire tenure of their younger employees' time with the company. So I realized, they're making all this money, but they're turning around and giving it to the healthcare industry, the healthcare insurance industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and they're like, man, how do we stop that bleeding, right? All of us. And so I'm like, oh, okay, and I said, and then so when that, and again, this is just a thought that happened instantly, but within probably 2 or 3 seconds after she asked me the question, I instantly responded by saying, well, CJ, that's easy. All we have to do is eliminate harmful chemicals and harmful contaminants from the air we breathe, step 1. Step 2, we have to remove those same harmful chemicals and contaminants in the water we drink, the water we cook with, and the water we bathe with. We think, oh, if I drink the bad water, I'm going to hurt myself, so I get buying a bunch of bottled water in plastic bottles that have a bunch of chemicals in it, phthalates and stuff that are polluting our body. It's not just about what we're drinking, consuming, it's also what we're exposed to, bathing in. And we're going to go deep into that another day. But for now, it's like that was like, okay, chemicals out of the water, check. And then it finally was like, and then we have to get chemicals out of our food. In the story, mic drop, where's my money, right? And then I thought for a moment, I said, okay, I had a pretty good solution for getting chemicals out of the air. Like we have to eliminate some stuff, and then there's some strategies that we can employ to be able to clean out the particulate matter and biological elements and harmful volatile organic compounds and semi-volatile organic compounds. I mean, we've created a freaking cesspool inside of our homes. I mean, it's insane, and we just don't know because we're ignorant. We're ignorant until we aren't, right? And that requires knowledge. And then hopefully the knowledge with the understanding will lead us to wise actions, actually taking steps to implement strategies and tactics to solve the problem. Okay, chemicals, air, food, and water. So I thought, okay, got air, and then I thought about food. I'm like, okay, food. I mean, the minimal. I mean, if you want to get chemicals out of your food, you have to minimum go with organic. And look, there's a lot to be said about organic. I mean, it's a bit of on some level, the government's kind of created this really sloppy system by which they've watered down the standards. They overcharge people to maintain the organic license when it should be just the opposite. We should demand the people using chemicals to report what chemicals are using and what chemicals is in their food and how what chemicals are now in the ground, in the soil, killing soil biology, getting into our groundwater, contaminating our groundwater, which we're now drinking. Like, come on, guys, what are we doing? And so I said, okay, so minimum organic. Better than organic is locally grown organic. Better than locally grown organic, locally grown regenerative agriculture, biodynamic food forest food, right? From people have the right mindset. They have the earth-oriented mindset. They're Mother Earth oriented. They understand the importance of the web and cycles of life, and they understand that soil biology is everything. Because again, there's some organic standards that allow people to use some less harmful pesticides, but again, so again, beyond organic, local, biodynamic, regenerative agriculture, direct relationship with our local farmers and those raising the food that we need to be eating. Okay, so that's air, that's food, and then I thought about, okay, water, and again, this is all happening in I don't know, seconds, 10, 15 seconds, and then I then got to water in my brain. I thought, water, what do you do about water? And I realized that water is the single greatest source of environmental toxins, chemicals, contaminants that we're exposed to on a regular daily basis. We're drinking it. And those that aren't drinking it, you think you're better because you're drinking water in a plastic bottle. You're not. If your water is not this is not going to show up on the green screen. In fact, that's funny. This is a green bottle. This is a Mountain Valley spring water bottle. But yeah, so look, if it's not in glass, you shouldn't be buying it. And you should only be buying this because you're out and you don't have water. Stop buying plastic bottled water. That's step one, guys. I mean, come on. So pristine water, artesian water. I get this in 2.5 gallon bottles. And again, it's a little cheaper. And again, we're not throwing away a bunch of bottles. This has got to change. We've got to figure out how to recycle these bottles. We got to be doing a bottle deposit on these so that we can actually inspire people to turn these in, so we're not throwing this stuff away, ending up in a landfill. I mean, this is resources. We're just not thinking. Okay. My goodness, there's a lot to cover here. Let me see. So that was the water, and I was like, okay, man, this we're going to start. And so that concluded the conversation with CJ. She left, and my brain's kind of now working, but I kind of put it aside. And it was churning in the background. I'd give some bandwidth to it, but not so much. I mean, I was focusing on other things. And then fast forward. So I should also mention before I leave the story. So she said, Arnie, I present this question to you because of the work that I was doing, the vision I had created about establishing what I was calling an off-the-grid, so completely off the grid, not plugged in to water power, all that, sewage, self-sustaining sort of system. A children's education and wellness village, and we had already found a site in the back of the Woodlands, and so that was the plan. Like, okay, that was kind of my next step. I had been a little bit frustrated by not solving the problems of chronic disease, and I discovered a couple of, critical flaws in my yoga business model. Again, I won't bore you with the details, but at the time, I was a bit of an existential crisis. I knew that there was more to the solution. And so I was looking now back at going to the land, looking at educating the next generation. Because we want to solve the problems that we're talking about right here. This isn't about you and me. This is about you and me educating our children, the next generation. It's the next generation that has to solve the problems created by us and our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents. And right now, we're leaving our children and their children a horrible future. And if you're not looking, then you're blind. Get your head out of the sand and let's look at this thing together. So how to solve this problem, to end chronic disease in America, let's start by preventing it from ever happening. And that happens at the youngest among us, where we have at least some modicum of control over what they eat. The environment that we raise them in, the water that we're exposing them to. I mean, these are things within our hands, us as the adults in the room making these decisions for the betterment of our children. Because here's what I know about this health and wellness and the longevity movement, which right now, if you've got money and you can hire the all the longevity gurus out there, which I follow most of them. I think they're brilliant. I'm a big fan of them. But here's what I know. That the older we are, the less likely we're going to make the changes in our life to see the results that we all desire. And it reminds me of a story of my 40th high school reunion. I went there and I was blown away by how many people were sick. Chronic disease issues, obesity, diabetes, hypertension, people, my fellow peers, classmates dying of horrible diseases, cancer and neurological disorders. And so it kind of broke my heart. I wasn't there for very long. But I left and recognized, I don't know what it feels like to have a disease. I mean, I'm eating organic. I drink, Mount Valley spring water. I do yoga. I meditate. I have breathing practices. I mean, I have sleep regimen. All these sort of things that most people just don't have. And the consequences were right there in front of me. So it was, this has been playing in my heart for quite some time. So and I've a little bit have a couple of tangents going on here. Let me see if I can circle back around and tie some of them off here. But I realized that this problem was big, and if we need to solve the problem, it's not going to be getting all of us old and sick people that are going off the cliff, already off the cliff. Really, I mean, let's be clear about that. We're already sliding off the cliff. That if we're going to solve the problem, we have to prevent it from happening to begin with. And so that happens with our children, and the younger the better. So really, I'm probably, the people I've been talking to are probably grandmothers and even great-grandmothers about this point, but really the people this message is for, probably this message belongs in TikTok, because it's the next generation that has to solve the problems created by those that came before them. It's those that are just now thinking about a family. It's those that have children under the age of 12. And so that's where I landed. The idea was the place to start is starting at children under the age of 12. And man, look, 10, 11, 12, we're already probably, that horse is already out of the barn. Tough to get that horse back in the barn. And those of you that are parents of 10, 11, 12, or maybe even younger these days, you know how challenging it is once they've been exposed to McDonald's and fast food and candy and all the things that we grew up eating and consuming, and it was fine. So we thought, it's not. It just simply isn't. And so we need to be educated about what to do. You need knowledge. And then you need to understand the knowledge to then make the wise actions. And then you need the support and the accountability to be able to implement the solutions for not you, but for your children. Because I don't believe we'll do these things for ourselves. I don't. I have a number of friends who are like, yeah, whatever, right? I'm like, man, you guys just keep doing what you're doing. I promise you, it is going to be over in the moment and in the twinkling of an eye, and it's gone. But if we're paying attention, what are we leaving our kids? This is what we're leaving our kids. This is it. Wake up. This is it. If there's any hope of this, we've got to take immediate actions now. And not this big global kumbaya, let's all do this together. This is you in your neighborhood with your children's best friends, parents, mothers. That's how this thing ultimately starts. But I'm way ahead of myself at this point. So, man, I mean, this is going to be partly, you know, on my soapbox, and this is going to be part of hopefully, you know, doing something to kind of inspire those of you that eventually get this, who see this. And I'm not sure how many people will get this. Episode number 1 of the Audacious Challenge on the summer solstice. But I'm going to give you some fire on this longest day of the year and hopefully inspire those of you who finally tune in to take actions, you know, to inspire you to take actions. You know, the next two weeks, or those of you the next week or 2 weeks, depending on how long you stay with me, here is my goal. My goal is to justify your failures. It is not your fault. We just don't know. We're ignorant until we're not. But look, once you know and you then choose not to do it, now you're just being willfully ignorant. Keep doing what you're doing. You know, like once you know and you don't do it, like what are you doing? Especially if you got the resources and you're not doing it, what are you doing? You know, you're saving up all your money to leave to your nieces, your cousins. I mean, somebody before you think they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to take these resources and apply them. There's not. There's not a future here. Like, they're not going to know what to do with the money when they're confronted with this, the rising waters. So really, it's a planet on fire, right? I mean, we should be so lucky that the waters rise to put the fire out, but that's coming too. So I'm here to justify your failures. That it's not your fault. You just need more knowledge. And you need the right knowledge. I mean, look, if you've been looking for knowledge, if you're on the, and I've got a friend who, you know, gives me TikToks. Well, what about this supplement? What about that supplement? What about this? And I'm like going, you know, great marketing, but it's overpriced and it's not going to solve your problem. You need a bigger solution. The solution is we got to start from the very beginning, root causes. There's no magic pill. There's no magic supplement to get us to where we need to go. And so I'm here to tell you that there is knowledge that we can, you know, boil it down to what you need to know. We can boil it down to why it's important that you know it. And then we can, you know, put that into a comprehensive and scalable protocol that will give you and your children and your parents and your pets the solution that we all desire, the outcome that we all desire, health and happiness and hopefully some longevity. For a lot of us who've waited too long, there's not a whole lot of hope in the longevity part of this equation. But if we start now, we might be able to inspire our children to greater longevity. But that requires educating an entirely new generation to think differently about where we are. I'm here to also kind of allay your fears that you know, if you've been trying to do this and you just don't know, you can't find those pearls of wisdom because of the piles of riches that you're looking in. Every guru and every, you know, chiropractor who's somehow taken a mantle up that they are now an expert in nutrition, and I'm like, it's amazing what's out there. I'm just amazed, you know, the lack of understanding of science, and how they're promoting various protocols that are anti-scientific, really. But I'm not going to go there today, but we'll talk about that, and then provide the resources of what you need to know and who to follow and all that sort of stuff. So that there's curated information I think is really critical to this equation. Justify your fears. Justify your failures. I'm going to help to allay your fears, and then I'm going to help to throw rocks at our enemies. I mean, they're our enemies, and there's a lot that we're looking at. But you know, it's like get your box of rocks ready, because you know we're going to be chunking some rocks at some industries that have just not performed for our best interest. You know, we can start with the pharmaceutical industry, the medical insurance industry, a failed and broken medical system at large, the agrochemical industry, the agro-pharma industry, the petrochemical industrial complex. I mean, like, you know, if they're making poisons and chemicals, and it's getting into our air and our food and our water, these are the titans that we're up against. And make no mistake about it, they're massive, they're huge, and they have been paying lobbyists for decades now, generations, where they have been influencing our political policy, not for our benefit, but to the benefit of the corporations. This is that sort of captive agency element, right? Where you got the, you know, the corporate attorney for the Pfizers that then go and become a Supreme Court justice, or becomes the head of the FDA. Or the, you know, the lobbyist for the wireless telecommunication industry that then goes and becomes the head of the FCC. And it goes on and on and on and on. And again, that's that sort of political dark money stuff where money comes out of their back pocket, it goes into the campaign of that new person who then gets them appointed to these choice jobs where they change the policies for the benefit of the corporation at the expense of you and me. We will be throwing rocks at our enemies. We'll identify who they are and what problems are caused, and then more importantly, what do we do about it? And I'm just gonna leave you with one hint as we talk about you know, throwing rocks at our enemies. Is this, and I'm like, why have we not heard this word since the early 70s? One word: boycott. You want to make a change, mothers who hold the purse strings? Stop buying the crap. Stop buying the products that we've been sold believing that we need to have that are causing the problems. Stop buying all fragranced items, body care products, all the fragrance in your fabric softener and dishwashing. I mean, like, it goes on and on and on. The plugins, my mom has, and sister, I think everybody in my family suffering from obesity, diabetes, you know, hypertension, cancer, got all these chemicals plugged in because they somehow think that the smell of these perfumes makes them feel like the house is clean. It is madness. And yet these are endocrine disrupting chemicals that can trigger a wide range of chronic diseases. Okay, yep. Throwing rocks at our enemies, because it's really pulling back the veil. I mean, who are they? Now, more importantly, what do we do about it? You know, and not everybody who hears this is going to do it. You know, if you think that's the way to go, if you think Febreze is going to put a smile on your face as a commercial says it's going to do, and that's the marketing ploy, Febreze. Spray it in your home, and you'll be happy, right? It's not true. And so this is part of where, you know, the idea of confirming your suspicion. We've been lied to, we've been marketed to, and marketing is, you know, I mean, my goodness, marketing works, right? You get enough messages, right message in front of the right people, eventually you'll get them to start buying your products and using your products, referring your products, and next thing you know, we're buying stuff that really, between you and me, should never have been on the shelves to begin with. Why were they on the shelves? We have a broken system. The FDA, who's supposed to regulate these chemicals that we're exposed to, we think that someone is taking care of us. They're not. They're not taking care of us. We've got the foxes in the hen house, writing policy for the benefit of the corporation that they just left. Oh, by the way, that they'll be going back to at the end of the 4-year or 8-year cycle, right? So yeah, you know, we've got to address that. So I'm going to confirm your suspicion. Yep, there is a evil intent, and I don't think there probably are a bunch of guys, and yeah, maybe in a dark room, you know, cigar smoke going off, right? How do we manipulate the, you know, the wills of our audience to buy our stuff? Yeah, probably, maybe they're not so dark or whatever. Probably flying in private jets, you know, enjoying you know, the wealth that they've created on selling you and me and our families, you know, toxic chemicals and contaminants, which are anti-biological, right? So we're looking for who's responsible. There are titans responsible for this. Yep. So justify your fears or failures. Allay your fears. We're going to throw rocks at our enemies. We're going to confirm your suspicions. And lastly, I mean, and this is the ultimate goal, because if I left you with that, I mean, just kill me now. Right? I'm like, just kill me now. I mean, it's too much. So at the end of the day, my ultimate goal is to share a message with you of hope, to encourage your dreams, to let you know that we can do this. We can do it. You and me, we can do it. And we can do it for ourselves, our own families. We can do it for our yard, our neighborhood, our school, our, you know, the schools that our children are going to, the community that we live in. I mean, so literally it's like, it starts with us, so it starts with you and me, but we're going to work our way out on a scalable model, comprehensive and scalable model that addresses the underlying root causes of these problems. Okay, so we kind of talked about the origin of the Audacious Challenge, the $50 trillion riddle. You know, Anadark Petroleum asking the question, why are children getting sicker and sicker and sicker at younger and younger ages with the chronic disease that was once reserved for the elderly? And then kind of, you know, me setting out. And then that kind of takes me from that February 11th, 2012 to, again, magical moment, June 6th, 2012. A few short months later. This was the day that the last transit of Venus across the sun. This is where you could visibly see Venus go across the sun. There was a number of us students that actually gathered together at the property that we were looking at building the village on. We had planned this, you know, had brought in a geomancer. We'll talk about that. If you don't know what a geomancer is, ask the question, what's a geomancer? We brought in a kind of world famous geomancer, and we, you know, she was able to divine the location of a massive labyrinth. And so here we are in this massive ancient, you know, labyrinth with all this granite stones that my buddy Butch and I hauled from Fredericksburg to get, you know, create this massive labyrinth. We taught a bunch of people how to dowse the rocks and define the location where the rocks go, the stones go into the labyrinth. So fun time, people working together, really important part of this overall equation, right? And so we went out there, we watched it. My friend Sherston, my assistant at the time, you know, so we, you know, the event was over. We came back, and then she and I were going to go back out later and do some meditation in the deal, this auspicious occasion. Again, this isn't going to happen until December 10th, 2117, if my memory's correct. 104 some odd years, I think, maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Eric Francis, if you're watching, you can correct me when that date is. Or anybody that's got Google, right? So we were going to go back, and it was kind of funny because on this day, Eric Francis, speaking of Eric, one of a guy I've been following for a while, he had given me a reading. It was a birthday reading. It's September, Sagittarius birthday reading, 2011, and he talked about sort of this big event happening on that day. And so as the day was coming to close, it's like, you know, 10 o'clock at night, 10:15 at night or whatever. And I thought, you know, look, this isn't going to happen. And then it did happen. And this was a day, and it was exactly at 10:35 p.m. That's why 10:35 is, in my world, is kind of a magic number. And that Jen, my wife, business partner, one of the most amazing human beings on the planet, you know, we made the decision in that moment to make the separation, and that I would give her the yoga studio, and that I would go on this path to work on this off-the-grid wellness education and children education and wellness project in the back of the Woodlands. And you know, I refer to this as metaphorically burning my boat. I think from the Matrix analogy, I took the red pill, and I jumped, and I had no idea, you know, how long this journey was going to take. I had no idea. But I jumped and I stepped off. And one of the first things that I discovered shortly after, once we kind of figured out, making that transition, figuring out how to move things forward. One of the early things that I discovered was the September 11th, September 2011 United Nations Emergency Summit, where they called on all nations to send their brightest, smartest people. This is, government agencies, corporations, NGOs. I mean, guys, we got to come together. There's this big thing we got to look at. And this was a summit on, it's called non-communicable diseases, AKA chronic diseases. And they're like, this chronic diseases represents the single greatest threat to society, the future of our society, than maybe anything else. And they got my attention. But here's, this summit wasn't about coming together to end suffering, to end the pain, to end the misery of chronic disease. It was like, hey guys, you guys need to come together because we're going to have a problem with our employees. We're not going to have enough employees to keep our factories going. We're not going to have enough people working to allow us to make money. It was an economic forum. It wasn't a pain and suffering forum. And I kind of went like, oh my God, well, what? Is that the only thing that we can think about, is how do we make money? And look, money makes the world go round. And as long as green pieces of paper, we can turn those things into tangible assets and resources, I'm all over it. I'm all about that. Especially if it's going into the solution and not buying another bigger plane and another house or another, boat or another island or paying for another rocket ship. Oh my God, we don't need another, those aren't the solutions. Those are the problems. Bezos and Musk and Branson. I mean, come on, guys. Use your brilliant minds and your resources to solve this problem, the only problem, as far as I'm concerned, that matters. And anybody who has a half a brain will tell you the same. And those of us that are polymaths, that are, not specialized in one thing, we only know one thing, and that's all we know how to do. We're commercial real estate people, we're, oil and gas people, we're at some point, this conversation, this challenge is going to be solved by people who are engineers and scientists and lawyers and accountants and creatives and copywriters and people who can do this for a living, lighting people and camera people. But it's people who are like, okay, what's the next thing I got to learn? I've never learned it before, but I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to get to the starting gate, and I'm going to keep running as hard as I can, because I got a 12-year and 6-month journey starting today. Ready, set, go. Right? This is the ultimate marathon. Any out there for big marathons? My big brain, buddies like Tim Ferriss. This is it, man. This is it. This is the, if you go into Burning Man to solve problems, take this challenge into Burning Man and come back with a comprehensive and scalable solution. I would love to join you in that conversation. I've spent a little time thinking about it. Okay, where am I? Digressing, sharing, just opening my heart, being transparent. There's so much in here, and it's not really well organized, as you can see. But I wanted to share kind of the stuff that comes up. I wanted to follow a general outline about what we're going to cover and how this is going to work. And then hopefully I can, take the great advice of, one of my all-time favorite gurus, Gary Vee, and I can chop this up and create 100 YouTube shorts and 100 TikToks and 100, appropriate content getting out there, and let people know there's a big problem, that there's an audacious challenge that we're looking at, and that we all need to come together to solve a problem that is worth solving. I should mention at this point, this idea of the audacious challenge, that was inspired by Ted's Audacious project. And this audacious challenge that this is day one of, this will be 12 months from now, we'll submit this on the TED stage, and again, it may not be 12 months from today, whenever that next cycle of their Audacious project presents. And that we will then present this as Einstein Mother's Audacious Challenge will be our Audacious project, presenting to the philanthropic family of TED. Because again, it's those brilliant-minded people with the resources that are socially oriented, that are thinking in big terms. It's the Melinda Gates. It's the You know, it's the brilliant-minded mothers out there. It's the was it Shiva Vedanta? Forgive me if I mispronounced your name. One of my all-time favorite heroes in India. Giant bindi on her forehead. Who, I mean, again, I love the woman. I listen to her all the time. Early inspiration on this journey and conversation. So again, the Audacious Challenge inspired by the Audacious Project. If you haven't checked it out, go to theaudaciouschallenge.com and there'll be links to the Audacious Project, and you'll get a sense, a flavor about the magnitude of what this is. And I'm not the only guy here doing this. Maybe that's the other point. I'm not the only person thinking about solving big problems. So as long as we're clear, and I don't have every answer to every problem that we're facing. I've got a list of a whole bunch of things. I'm like, I haven't figured out yet. But I know that I don't have to figure those out yet, but if I can engage the right people with the right, science and engineering backgrounds, people that are, that understand STEAM-powered solutions, that together we can figure this out. So this is an invitation for you all to come join me. And I think I'm close to the hour. I initially thought about making these 90 minutes, but I wasn't sure if I had enough content for 90 minutes. Well, I think after this hour, maybe you might agree that I do. But I don't want to keep just talking on. I mean, this is a lot of information. I mean, I just stood up here with a fire hose of information. And those who know me, that's one of my, if I have a downside, that's one of my downsides. If you just know everything I know, then it's like, no. I mean, I've come to the conclusion, and I share with my clients, like, if you had to know everything I know in order to be saved, in order to heal yourself or your family, or to find longevity, health, and happiness in your life, it's not going to happen. And we're all going to go to hell in a handbasket before that happens. It's just too much. But over the last 11 years, I have assembled protocols and products that represent a comprehensive and a scalable solution that is socially equitable, that is beyond sustainable, that has a governance which is absolutely transparent and beholden to you. And this is the ultimate in public benefit corporations, and not signing up for the B Corp, which I think is great, but literally living, embodying a corporation that is in service of you, in service of our children, in service of our community, health and happiness. So while I've got many, many more things to share with you, I have no idea if I covered the things that were on my list. But I hope this is a good place to start. And Christopher, thank you for being here. Nancy, thank you for your contribution. Rosa, thank you for your contribution. And for all of my friends that are just, you're on the sideline and you're just waiting to see. Let's go see what Arnie, jump in. Take whatever stick is in your craw and come on, jump in, support this. Don't support me, and support a vision for a brighter future. Be the solution. Don't be the change, be the solution that we want to see. We can get here, but right now, make no mistake about it, this is where we are. Okay, that's it. I'm going to call this a good and a successful first day, a wonderful day on a wonderful auspicious time, the summer solstice. And I believe, initially I'm going to suck a little bit, and then I'll, or a lot, I don't know. But the more I practice this, the more I'm comfortable on stage, and once I'm comfortable in figuring out how to switch with technology, I'll get better. Until then, I appreciate you bearing with me, and I appreciate you attending today. I appreciate you, I love you, and I look forward to the conversation. Leave your comments below. Start the conversation. With that.
And she gives me all